Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdos out there.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, my weird dad's weird podcast about weird movies.
Hello and welcome to Wake Up Heavy Recollections of Horror. This is Mark, and this is the fourth and final episode of the Women in Horror Month 2019 special series. And this is something that I hope to make an annual tradition, as well as focusing on some of these films throughout the year on side
That doesn't sound right.
On side episodes and even the longer episodes. And Patreon episodes. I already have a couple of ideas that I'm not covering today. Today is all about two films that are modern horror classics and favorites of mine. The first of which is Ty West's 2009 The House of the Devil.
I promise to make this as painless for you as possible.
And secondly, Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer's 2014 Starry Eyes.
Sarah, if you can't fully let yourself go, how can you ever transform into something else?
It was a gateway part.
And in particular, I will be talking about the stars of those two movies, Jocelin Donahue from House of the Devil and Alex Essoe from Starry Eyes. If you've been following along with the podcast, then you know that these two movies were at the top of my modern horror list in that early episode, as well as being mentioned as among my favorites of the subgenre satanic cults. And other than that, these movies share a little bit in common. They both have an 80s throwback feel. The House of the Devil is aesthetically and technically a throwback as well. The filmmakers employed many of the methods and techniques from 80s horror films, including shooting on 16 millimeter, lots of slow zooms, freeze frame titles at the beginning and at the end when the end credits roll, the synth score, and the use of some classic 80s tunes, as well as placing the movie in the year 1983. Starry Eyes' 80s aesthetic is a little more subtle. There is a synth score as well. The titles are very Paperbacks from Hell. This is a book that you should get if you have any interest in horror movies and or novels. It is by Grady Hendrix with tons of help from Will Erickson, who also has a website called Too Much Horror Fiction. And I mentioned this on a message board that I belonged to shortly after I saw Starry Eyes, and how I, kind of got that 80s feel from it and was sort of poo-pooed by some other members of this message. It's not a horror movie message board, but the topic itself was horror movies. And I feel sort of vindicated every time I watch it, because those titles are straight off of horror novels. Not as blatant a Stephen King rip as Stranger Things, but it has that definite look and feel, plus the music and some other touches within the movie. Of course, the other common factor is that both of these stories revolve around cults of one sort or another. And in The House of the Devil, we have an unwitting protagonist, and in Starry Eyes, we have a more witting? Is that the opposite of unwitting? Protagonist. So we'll get into that when we talk about the stars of the movie. In introducing these films, I will try to be as brief as possible because that is not the focus of this episode. I watched The Devils. Well, I haven't seen The Devils in a long time. I watched The House of the Devil around the time when my friend Ronnie and I were kind of meeting up every week to watch horror movies. I don't remember if we watched it together or not. When he would leave, I'd usually throw on another movie or two until my family got home. I wasn't blown away the first time I watched it, but something stuck in my head. I, of course, like the subgenre. It is a slow burn movie. There is a section of the film that lasts about 15 minutes where not a whole heck of a lot happens. And on my first viewing, I didn't get it. I was expecting some jump scares and fake scares as we are kind of conditioned to feel or look out for. And they didn't happen, but things are unraveling and discoveries are being made by the audience, if not the title or the main character. A while later, I watched it again, and I think I was working at home that day, and it, even though I wasn't really immersed in the movie, it clicked a little more, and I ended up watching it again immediately after, and actually watching the movie and paying attention. And at that moment, it became a top 10 modern horror movie for me, and I have watched it numerous times since. When I finally realized I was going to do this episode on these two movies, I had actually already watched it last month, but I went ahead and watched it again for the show. So it is definitely my favorite Ty West movie. I have seen, I think 4 or 5 of his movies, and most of the rest of them don't do a whole lot for me. The Innkeepers is an interesting ghost story that I would kind of hesitantly recommend. Now, with Starry Eyes, I had been reading about that online for a while, and it had created some buzz at South by Southwest the year that it played. And reading the description and kind of realizing what it was about, I thought, well, this sounds really right in my wheelhouse. And it finally showed up on Netflix, and I watched it and immediately liked it, and would probably place it a little bit higher on my list than The House of the Devil, and definitely feel that there's just a bit more going on in this. There's a larger cast, there's a little bit more depth to the character. The character is kind of put through the ringer quite a bit more in this one than in The House of the Devil. In The House of the Devil, Jocelin Donahue plays Samantha, a college sophomore who is trying to break out on her own. We open with a scene of her looking over an apartment that she's interested in renting, and we have some cast throwbacks as well here. Dee Wallace is the landlady in what's pretty much a glorified cameo. We also have Mary Woronov and Tom Noonan as the Ullmans, who will appear later in the film. Samantha realizes that she needs to come up with $300 quickly so that she can pay the first month's rent. She sees a sign on campus for babysitter.
That doesn't sound right.
For babysitter wanted, and calls the number. After a little game of phone tag, she finally gets in touch with Mr. Ullman, and they strike a deal for her to come out to their large house and babysit. Upon arrival, she discovers that it is not a babysitting job, but rather she is there to watch the Ullman's elderly mother, while the Ullmans attend a meeting that revolves around the total lunar eclipse that is going to happen. Samantha slowly realizes that she is in fact there under nefarious circumstances. Donahue carries this movie. She is in every scene. And as I mentioned, there's not a lot happening in the movie itself. So she is often alone, and the acting is mostly reacting. She does a lot of exploring. She dances around to the fix. And when the shit does finally hit the fan, and it does hit it, she handles the situation with great tenacity. This is not the whimpering, shattered young lady that is so common in many of the actual 80s horror movies. She stands on her own throughout the film and in the climax and makes a very tough and unusual decision at the end. And this was a great casting choice because she appears fairly frail and kind of small, and of course she's framed that way as well in a lot of the scenes, but she is a slight person, and that kind of lulls us as an audience into thinking, when the shit does hit the fan, this girl is in trouble. So to use a popular phrase, our expectations are subverted. And that's in part by the casting choice and by her great performance in this. She is completely believable throughout and makes good choices when the situations arise. Now, I have seen her in a number of other movies. They're not all genre movies. Two that have very similar titles, and let's see if I can remember them. The Living and The Frontier. And I totally conflate these two movies. I watched them, I think, fairly close together. But I think they're more crime thrillers than horror. And the only other horror that I have seen her in is in part of the Holidays anthology, and she was in the Father's Day section and did well in that as well. Now, the reason that I picked these two movies is because of the upcoming Mike Flanagan adaptation of Stephen King's Dr. Sleep. She and Alex Essoe are in that movie, and this all kind of converged after I recorded the Mia Farrow episode. That put in my head Starry Eyes, and when I think about Starry Eyes, I think about Alex Essoe, and I thought about Dr. Sleep, and then I remembered that both of these actresses are going to be in that movie, and that trio right there makes me want to see it, regardless of anything that I hear about the movie when it comes out or whatever. Stephen King adaptation, Mike Flanagan directing, Jocelin, Donahue, and Alex Essoe in the same movie. I hope they have scenes together, but who knows? That would be kind of maybe too much to handle. So anyway, on to the 2014 film Starry Eyes. Alex Essoe plays Sarah, a struggling actress who is working at Big Taters, a fast food joint run by the wonderful Pat Healy, who is in so many of these independent horror and thriller movies. Once you see his face, you'll recognize him. This is a pretty great cast. We've got a larger cast. We have more cast interactions throughout. Noah Segan is in this, and he's kind of one of those guys that I love to hate. And I think it's mainly due to the characters he plays. There's just something about him that kind of makes you want to reach through the screen and wring his neck a little bit. In this movie, he's actually very nice, and it is my favorite role of his. And then I just have to mention, and I'll probably totally destroy her name, unfortunately, Fabienne Therese, who is so amazingly good in this movie as the catty, kind of passive-aggressive friend or acquaintance that always deals out these backhanded compliments to our main character throughout, and she plays it so pitch perfectly. It is amazing. But she is, just to go off on a little tangent here, in my favorite horror anthology movie, Southbound, in actually two sections of that, and they're all kind of loosely connected stories that take place on this same stretch of highway out in the desert. And she is in the section that, of course, involves, again, my favorite subgenre. And then that kind of rolls over into the next story. And she is really good in that as well. Alex Essoe as Sarah goes on an audition call that doesn't go well, and it's for this company called Estrellas Pictures, who supposedly we find out has been around forever and has done all these great films. At the end of her audition, she goes to the restroom and kind of has a little bit of a freak out, and we discover that she suffers from, well, let's see if I can get this word out correctly in one fell swoop, trichotillomania. You can hear the paper rustling. I'm trying to look for my phonic note on that word. Okay, I think I nailed it. So she has the compulsion to pull her hair out. Once she gets out of the stall, one of the casting agents is there and asks what she was doing, and then immediately has her come in and kind of redo the audition, including that flip out. She ends up having a seizure and then wakes up back at home. She is called back a couple more times. We lead into a little casting couch scenario that she leaves from quickly. She has a change of heart, goes back, and then begins to transform
That doesn't sound right.
both emotionally and physically. Now, I kind of mentioned that this character gets put through the ringer a little bit more than the Samantha character in House of the Devil, and we have this physical transformation that reminds me of another movie called Contracted, and I may have mentioned that in my favorite modern horror episode, or it may have not made the list, but it's an interesting, low-budget indie film that I would recommend, and the two female leads and the characters go through a very similar physical transformation, and I have to say that the makeup and special effects in Starry Eyes are absolutely gut-wrenchingly amazing. But Essoe's performance is full of emotional depth and physical depth. She, like I said, gets put through a lot, crying in multiple scenes, vomiting up worms, and then just her final transformation as she's going through all this. She looks horrible. She has to do some awful things if she wants to come out the other end, and she does them. And the ending of this movie, again, you kind of get lulled into this not simple story, but, a story that we've all heard before about the struggling actress trying to make it in LA. All her friends are struggling artists, musicians, and filmmakers. But it takes a turn that I think turned a lot of people off. But it went down one of those roads that I enjoy going down. And it gets really brutal, really bloody, and really gross at the end. So just be warned with that. Both of these movies are currently streaming on Shudder. So plug number 58, I guess, for that streaming service. And I think Starry Eyes might be on Prime as well. I have seen Essoe again in mainly shorts or sections of anthologies. They both of these actresses have fairly long credits. I just haven't seen a lot. Trying to track some of them down is a little bit hard. But she was in a short called The Home, which at one point was on Shudder. I don't know if it still is. That was pretty good. She was in the anthology, not Holidays, but Tales of Halloween. And I don't remember a whole bunch about that anthology in general, but I do remember that her section was pretty good. And a lot of it has to do with her. She kind of elevates these roles. There's a movie on Hulu currently called The Midnighters, which is more of a psychological thriller that she is also very good in. And so, again, I am much looking forward to her in Dr. Sleep. She plays Wendy Torrance, and I'm trying to figure this out. She plays Wendy Torrance. And so I don't know. I haven't read the book. I know it's a sequel to The Shining. I know it involves Danny's character when he's older. And so I'm having a hard time figuring out how this works, but it must be flashbacks. She is playing the Shelley Duvall role from the original Shining, and of course from the books, obviously. And so I have to assume that because I think she's younger than Shelley Duvall was then when she played Wendy in Kubrick's movies. So I guess I'll find out. And if you know, let me know, because I have no idea. I need to read the book. I don't know if I'll get to it before I see the movie. It's supposed to come out this year, so we shall see. Alrighty, I think that does it for today. I didn't go too deeply into this, but I just wanted to highlight these two actresses that star in great leading roles that carry these movies and take them up a level. I think they were both perfectly cast and elevate these movies even higher. I have a hard time imagining somebody else in either of these roles. Oh, and just as a side note, Jocelin Donahue has been in a shitload of commercials over the last year. She's currently in an Aflac commercial, and then there's been a couple of others. And every time she pops up, I'm like, oh, that's that girl from one of my favorite horror movies. So good for her for getting work and paying those damn bills. Alrighty. I think I have an idea for the February, if I can get to it. We only have a few days left. The February episode for the Patreon subscribers. And it's going to be on my Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film list. And what I will be doing is listing every movie that I wrote. No, I'm just kidding. I am going to go through the list and talk about the movies that I have seen that were on this list that I created some 30 years ago. Maybe not the greatest idea to try to get people to subscribe, but it's one of those things that maybe doesn't fit the format of this podcast itself. It's something that I've wanted to do. I think I've mentioned it numerous times. I may talk about each movie ever so briefly in hopefully maybe a sentence or two, but it's just the idea came to me, and these things come to me, these ideas germinate, and then I feel like I need to do it to get it out of my head. The book was very important to me in discovering movies that I wouldn't normally have found out about. And I'll talk about all that during the episode, and how things are so different these days, and how at that age I really would have loved to be living in this time with streaming and everything. So we'll get into all that. It'll probably be a long, funky, wonky episode, but maybe it'll entice you to join up. Maybe not. Who cares? You won't have to worry about it. Alrighty, thank you for joining me on the Women in Horror Month series. Next month is the start of Season 2 of Wake Up Heavy, and I still have no idea what I'm going to be talking about. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. I think I tossed up on Instagram and Twitter stills from the 6 movies that I've been tossing around in my head, which include, and I may have mentioned this at some point, Taxi Driver, Rosemary's Baby, The Thing, The Tenant, Suspiria, and Martin. So if any of those tickle your fancy, let me know one way or another, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks as always for listening, and don't forget to wake up heavy.
And then the rain as we are.